From the beginning, I had wanted to share him with others, but initially he forbade me bringing people directly to him. A relatively few Westerners nevertheless found their way to him and were touched at the core of their beings as I had been. I have found that the absence of his body has not diminished his influence upon my life. To the contrary, with each passing year, I have increasingly experienced his presence, his guidance, his love, and each time I have taken myself too seriously, his cosmic giggle. This suggested the possibility that others who had never met him in the body could similarly be touched by him. This suspicion has been confirmed by a surprisingly large number of people who have reported that through books, lectures, tapes, and personal contact with devotees, they have experienced him in a way that has graced their lives. So, if you approach this book with a desire to meet him and have his darshan in a way that could profoundly alter your life, as it has ours, then you will want to work with this book slowly and deeply. I can only assure you that, in my opinion, each story carries some teaching and is worthy of reflection. You will neither want to nor be able to read this book through from cover to cover in one or even a few sittings. Rather, like fine brandy, these recollections must be sipped slowly and the taste and aroma allowed to permeate deeply into your mind and heart. And remember to listen to the silence into which the stories are set, for the true meeting with Maharajji lies between the lines and behind the words. For this effort, you will be amply rewarded through meeting a being of a spiritual stature rarely known on this earth. At one point, I tried to keep a list of experiences and his words. I had some 450 of them on several small sheets of paper. Then, while staying at the temple, one day I came back from lunch and entered my room just as a large crow, who had come in through the window bars designed to keep out the monkeys, was flying away with one of the sheets containing perhaps 40 or 50 of the 450. They were gone, and with them even the motivation to collect more. I saw how I had always used collecting as a way of distancing myself from the immediacy of the experience. I justify writing it down in order to think about it later. At that moment, I trusted that what I would learn from Maharajji would not be superficial things that can be written down in concepts, but rather a change in the essence of my being, and that I would have to learn how to open to trusting my being as registering essence wisdom without collecting it as knowledge. Excerpts from the chapter on Darshan. We all think we are chasing the Guru, but really, you see, he is chasing us. When you finally arrived at the right place at the right time and were told, yes, he's here, and found yourself seated before him, what was it like? Even the tongues and hands of the gods and goddesses of speech, music, and poetry could not do justice to those occasions. So how could I? Like the blind men with the elephant, each devotee met a different Maharajji. When Maharajji came out, you never knew what to expect. He could do the same thing a week in a row until you'd think, well, he'll come out at 8. Then he might not come out all day, or he might just go into another room and close the door and be in there for 2 days. You had to learn to expect the unexpected. One day he came out and all he said all day long was tul tul nan nan, repeating these words to himself like a mantra. Days went by like this and somebody finally said, Maharajji, what are you saying? And it turned out to be an old Bihari dialect, and all it meant was too big, too big, too little, too little. When he was finally asked why he was saying this, he said, oh, all you people, you all live in Tul Tul Nan Nan. You live in the world of judgment. It's always too big or too little. People are sitting quietly around Maharajji, concentrating. Maharajji faces the opposite direction of a person when he picks up on a loose thought and then he rolls to face the person. With an expression of annoyance and love, he raises one finger or shakes his fist. If someone is meditating, he tweaks his nose or pulls his beard. He turns to a person and tells her that she is very good. Another he maligns, telling all sorts of bad stories. Again, he turns to another and says, "Go, you wicked person." And the words and apples and tea and silences and laughter were all washed in a continuous river of love that poured forth from Maharajji. The devotees who knew were equally as happy with Maharajji's insults as with his praise, for it was all palpable love and food for the spirit. We took our cue in this respect from one of Maharajji's long-term trusted devotees called Dada, who served Maharajji with a singleness of purpose that awed us. When Maharajji would compliment him, Dada would say, "Ha, Baba," meaning, "Yes, Baba." And when Maharajji would shout insults at him, sometimes upbraiding him from morning till night, he would reply in exactly the same tone, "Ha, Baba." Obviously, fame and shame were one to him, at least when Maharajji was the source. No longer could Maharajji get Dada angry or guilty. Over the years, it had all been burned out. For Dada, it was all grace. He was so gentle that you weren't afraid of him at all. But sometimes you'd think that there must be a lion in there. All the love and affection and kindness that came from Maharajji, you cannot get these from man. Excerpts from the chapter Take Chai. The nature of the food that was served around Maharajji is worthy of note, for though it satisfied our souls, our intellects were often appalled. The usual diet at the temple consisted of white rice, puris, and potatoes, both fried, and sweets of almost pure white sugar. The diet was starch, grease, and sugar, and much black tea. All the sensitivity that the Western preoccupation with diet had awakened in us screamed at this diet. And yet, this was prasad. Did you reject prasad, or did you give up your dietary models? What did you do when the love came in the form of starch, grease, sugar, and tea? Greasy potatoes were one thing. A blessing from the Guru, however, was an entirely different matter. When Maharajji spoke about diet, he generally ignored the nutrition issues that so concerned some of us. But he did suggest that we eat simple foods. And he also advised us to eat food that was indigenous to the area in which we were living. And then to various devotees, he gave specific instructions about diet, advising one to forego wine, meat, eggs, hot spices, because they lead to an impure heart. Yet, to another he said, "What is this concern with what is meat and what is not? When you can live without meat, well and good. When you cannot live without it, then you should have it." Some he counseled to eat alone, silently, simply, or with a few people. To others, his instructions concerned the value of fasts 3 times a month, although when you were around him, he interrupted any fast you might attempt. From this confusion of instructions, most of us came away with the feeling that he was counseling us to trust our intuitions rather than get too caught in rules. At least, that's what we wanted to hear. Most of the time, Maharajji ate alone and distributed all that we devotees brought to him. But it was each person's dearest desire when we brought the fruit or other food that Maharajji eat some of it himself. And when he did, it felt like such a precious moment, one in which Maharajji had accepted a token of your love. Once, when I brought a soft apple and peeled it and cut it up and held it up before him as I had seen the Indians do, he reached down and took a few pieces from my hand. And I experienced that ecstasy that you might feel if a wild bird or deer had come and eaten out of your hand. Excerpts from the chapter Under Maharajji's Blanket. The way in which Guru and devotee relate to one another varies immensely from devotee to devotee. In the holy books, it is said that a devotee might see the Guru in the roles of father, mother, child, friend, master, lover, or God. And there were devotees who saw Maharajji in each of these ways. But the essence of the way in which Maharajji's Indian devotees felt toward him is perhaps better captured by the word Baba than by the term Guru. Baba can mean grandfather or elder. It is a term of respect used with either an older person or a spiritual person. The sadhus or wandering renunciates of India are usually called Baba, and so is the old street cleaner. Its softness and familiarity better capture the quality of the play between Maharajji and his devotees. For some of them, he was seen primarily as a grandfather of the family. The fatherly affection he'd give can't be gotten from anyone else. For others, their Baba was their dear friend. When you love somebody, you play anything with them. That's what I did. I never thought differently. In the following comparison between the behaviors of two of the devotees, another dimension of difference becomes clear. When devotee A was in the temple, it was predictable that if any Westerner were allowed near Maharajji, he would be the one. There was no limit to the ingenuity he employed to remain in Maharajji's presence for every possible second. If Maharajji told people to go away, A would be the last to leave and then might go immediately around the back of the building, pick a flower off a tree and arrive from the other side as if he were just arriving for the first time. When others were being told to go, he would often hide so as to avoid being included in the expulsion edict. It developed into an elaborate game in which Maharajji was a participant. A was a master of his game. He seemed to have a special sense that told him where Maharajji would be any moment, and he managed to be there, waiting. Others tried to compete in this game, but none approached A's totally one-pointed behavior. Others were hampered by guilt or compassion for others, feelings which, if mentioned, elicited only an uncomprehending look from A. Devotee B was an entirely different story. If Maharajji sent us to help in the kitchen, B would remain peeling potatoes long after others had given up and drifted back to Maharajji. He would stay until the last potato was peeled and then look for more work. Although he had been trained as an attorney in the United States, his service and humility at the temple was so outstanding that soon he was in charge of kitchens and storerooms. He remained in the temple performing the purest service for 5 years until he was evicted by the government. No job was too menial and there was no evidence of personal pride about his humility, nor any effort to get attention for his work. It was truly as if he came closest to God through his service. He hardly ever came near Maharajji, and when he did it, it was usually only to touch his feet and then go back to his duties. Devotees like A often infuriated other devotees because they seemed to be monopolizing Maharajji, while devotees like B aroused respect and sometimes guilt in others. Yet, intuitively, we knew that each in his own way was a pure devotee, and Maharajji obviously loved them both. As varied as were all the ways of seeing and being with Maharajji, so were his reactions. He responded to each according to his or her capacity to absorb. In the infinitely changing nature of Maharajji's behavior, each person found what he or she needed. Because he stood nowhere, he was like a mirror, showing each devotee the Baba or Guru that they projected. Often, with one act, he fed simultaneously the disparate needs of a dozen devotees. Who can say with these saints? They are like the sky. Maharajji's mind was completely clear. He would seem to have no thoughts, only that which Bhagavan willed and would come into his mind. Like a cloud, it would come and then, whoop, oh, such action and thought would produce. And again, like a cloud, it would pass. His mind was always clear. He used to speak to the devotee according to the person's own depth, according to what line of devotion the person was following. Whether a person had been with Maharajji for 25 years or was a rank newcomer, all were given the same consideration. There were no favorites, and no one was indispensable. Not only did his response differ from person to person, but it varied over time for each individual as well. It was as if each time you came before Maharajji were the first time. And if the same conversation happened again and again, which was often the case, it was because the devotee remained caught in the same place visit after visit. But each time the devotee would let go of the aspect of his thinking and behavior in which he or she was stuck, then he or she would find a whole new Maharajji. One of Maharajji's favorite styles of dealing with devotees, especially the Indians, was abuse, and he was a master of it. Most of the Westerners did not understand Hindi well enough to appreciate the peppery language Maharajji used, and most of the translators took it upon themselves to clean up his language for him. The Indians had become accustomed to his way of talking and actually interpreted it as a form of endearment. Maharajji always hit the people he liked. If he called you names like saying you were wicked or depraved, you knew he liked you. He'd abuse people, calling them troublemakers, telling them they danced naked, drank too much, were rowdies or sharabis. A relative used to give me trouble all the time, but I would say nothing. Troubled, I went to Maharajji and he knew right away, saying that this man was bothering me. He said, "It is good if somebody abuses you, good in a spiritual way also. A person progresses if someone abuses him. Don't be worried. A day will come when this man will come and bow his head before you." One day it happened. He came to me saying, "I made all these mistakes. I gave you unnecessary troubles." Besides the abuse, there was a great deal of teasing and chiding. One of the beauties of the relationships between the abusing, chiding Maharajji and the devotees was that many of them weren't afraid to fight back, and he seemed especially to enjoy those who stood up to him. I was able to speak in this brutal way because Knowing him since I was 6, I never reflected about the respectable way to talk with him. There was no feeling of bigness or elderness between us. Once, for example, he was just pulling on my nose, and I said to him, "Don't do that. If you can make it longer, then you can do it. Otherwise, don't touch my nose." Maharajji said, "Okay, I won't touch it, but I can bless you on the top of your head." I said to him that whatever he did with me, he must do in the right way. So he patted me on the head. This was the way I could talk to him. This is what I'm missing these days since he left his body. The last time I saw Maharajji was in Vrindavan. We had travelled since early morning to get there and arrived shortly before noon, but he didn't come out of his room until after 3 p.m. When he emerged, he immediately began yelling at me, telling me to go away, saying that he didn't want to see my face. "Jao!" I yelled back at him, asking what had I done to him. I had travelled all morning and waited all day to see him, and this was his greeting. "No," I said, "I won't go." He kept on yelling and finally called the chowkidar to throw me out. The chowkidar came, hands folded, speaking politely but persistently. I yelled at Maharajji, "Just let me see how this man will touch me, how he will throw me out. I won't go." Finally, Maharajji called me to him. He patted me on the head and said a few mantras, just as he had done the first time I saw him. Now he was smiling so beautifully. He told me that his Shakti, spiritual energy, would always be with me and that now I should go. By then I was filled by him, and I said that he didn't have to tell me to go. I was leaving on my own now because I had received his darshan. I didn't want to go to Madras with Maharajji. He asked me to go, but I had no clothing. Maharajji said he was going, and I said I would only go to the station and say goodbye. So I went inside his railroad coach because I wanted to pranam. But he just wouldn't talk to me. He turned away and wouldn't even look at me. I wouldn't get off, and after the train started, Maharajji began laughing. Then I had to go with him. In those days, Maharajji never stayed too long in one place, seldom more than 2 or 3 days. So I wasn't able to get his darshan more than a few times. Then I left Kanpur for Calcutta for 20 years, where I was very busy and had no connection with Maharajji. When I returned to Kanpur, I remembered Maharajji, wondering where he was and growing annoyed at myself for not seeking him. I left my meals for 2 months. My wife asked me why I was angry, why I wouldn't eat grains, but I never told her the reason. I was deeply annoyed with myself. Once in Allahabad, a man asked that I have the darshan of a very good saint. Without knowing the saint's name, I was taken to Dada's house. Maharajji saw me and said, "Why have you not eaten your meals for 2 months?" I replied, "Why have you not given me darshan? I may be mad, but you are a saint. You shouldn't be mad." Like a child, I spoke very rudely to him. Someone asked me, "Are you going to have a fight with Maharajji?" I said, "Yes, of course. Why shouldn't I fight? He is like my father and I, his son. Why shouldn't we fight? Don't interfere." Maharajji said, "Please don't interfere. He is my very old devotee." The people went away and Maharajji turned to me and said, "Now go home. I will come to your house tomorrow morning and I'll take my meal there." I said, "All right. When you take your meal at my place, only then will I start taking grains. If you don't come, I will not." Maharajji said, "Come tomorrow." I said, "No, Maharajji, I have no reliance on your words. You tell me to come to you tomorrow, but you may not be here then. Then what will my position be?" I won't go. I'll sleep tonight here on the veranda or on the grass. Maharajji said, No, there is no place for you to sleep here. I said, It doesn't matter, Maharajji. I'll sleep outside the gate on the public road with 1 or 2 bricks for a pillow. Then, in the morning, I'll catch hold of you. Maharajji said, Oh no, you must rely on me. I will definitely go with you. You go. Maharajji insisted, giving me his firm word. He then sent someone after me to drive me home. This man asked me to wait for half an hour. I sat down. Several people who had overheard my discussion with Maharajji told me that Maharajji often gives a blank check that is never cashed. He may or may not come. I told them that I would come the following morning, and if Maharajji didn't come with me, I would take the oath that I would not even drink water until he came. As I was saying this, Maharajji immediately came from inside. Wait, wait, I'll go with you just now. We climbed into 2 cars and drove to my house, arriving at about 11 at night. No fresh food was available, but Maharajji ate of the leftovers from dinner, taking a little of whatever was offered. He said, I've taken. Now you eat. Start eating grains and don't fast. Then he left. This is the story of Maharajji's blessing upon me. By and by it increased. Often, the quality of the play between Maharajji and devotees was truly childlike. Maharajji would plead with me like a spoiled child. Oh, Ma, please sing bhajan. He would quote the song, A well without water, a cow without milk, a temple without a lamp, so is a man without bhajan. It was the day of Raksha Bandhan, the day of tying protection ribbons on the wrists of your brothers. Earlier, I had bought ribbons for my brothers and for Maharajji as well. I left the ones for my brothers at home, but had Maharajji's in my purse. I'd never spent this day with Maharajji, and I very much wanted to tie the ribbon around his wrist, but I felt shy doing it in front of so many people. When we were alone for a moment, he let me tie it on his wrist. Just then, someone came into the room, and Maharajji said to him very shyly, Mother is tying the Raksha Bandhan. Maharajji had been in his room all morning, giving darshan to many people. After many hours, Dada whispered to Maharajji, as a father to a child, Come, Maharajji, you have been in here all morning and have never once gone to urinate. Maharajji put the blame squarely on Dada's shoulders. It's all your fault. You didn't remind me. Maharajji once seemed to make a great effort to pick up a dead fly on a piece of paper. Finally, he held it out for Dada to take. As Dada reached for it, the fly flew away, and Maharajji said angrily, I went to all that trouble, and you let it go. Baba, said Dada, it was in your hand, not mine. Maharajji just laughed. In 1968, at Kainchi, Maharajji would spend most of the day sitting on Dada's bed. He would say, Dada keeps awake, so I must stay up too. At 3 a.m., he came to Dada's room, knocking. You wake me, so today I wake you. But it's 3 a.m., protested Dada, and I wake you at 5. Maharajji just laughed and came in. Once the Maas came to Maharajji, saying, Maharajji, come take your bath. Go away, he replied. I don't want to. Come, KK, we'll go to Vrindavan. Maharajji was lying down, sick with a cold. Mrs. Soni, who had never seen him lying sick like that, rubbed his feet and said, Oh Maharajji, your feet are so cold. Are they, Ma? He was like a child. It was a new moon, which is auspicious to see. So just as one would with a child, she said, Maharajji, Come to the door and look at the new moon, and you'll be better. Will I, Ma? She helped him to the door, coaxing him. Ma, I don't see it. There it is. Where, Ma? Finally, oh, I see it. Then she said, now you'll be all better tomorrow. She helped him back to bed, and the next day he was better. One devotee said that although she had a camera, she had never taken pictures of Maharajji. She would lend her camera to others. One day it was loaded and in her possession. She was alone with Maharajji and decided to try to take pictures. He tried to pull my leg, posing this way and that, turning his head to the right, the left, pretending to meditate. It was such fun. She pointed out several photos of Maharajji, now on the ashram walls, which were taken at that time. Only we were allowed to be with him at all times, while he was eating, bathing, or going to the latrine. He was so delightful. Sometimes he was like a small child, so playful and joyful. Sometimes he would seem so helpless. A policeman led a captive through town and was being very cruel to him. Maharajji said, don't do that. The policeman was very abusive to Maharajji, but Maharajji replied, you should be more kind. You never know when you will be in the same position. The next day, the policeman was arrested for bribery and taken in chains through the town. A woman and her sister were taken by Maharajji to visit a juvenile jail in Bareilly. The convicts had constructed a dais for Maharajji to sit on, but they were required to remain some distance from him. They sang kirtan with folded hands. Maharajji gave some money to the superintendent for sweets for everyone, but told him not to tell where the money had come from. As they were leaving, they saw some young boys sitting in their cells. One of the women with Maharajji asked, Maharajji, can't you do something for them? Maharajji was in tears. Do you want to take that responsibility? Maharajji frequently used the expression central jail in reference to his body and to the ashrams. Maharajji used this expression even before Jay became superintendent of police of the central jail. Maharajji used to visit an Anglo-Indian devotee who was in the Fategar central jail. While visiting Jay's home, Maharajji would ask for prison food and they would serve him the prisoner's fare. He would eat it, then visit the prisoners. A few of these people, who were from all walks of life, even considered themselves devotees. Walks of life even considered themselves devotees.